Do you have a problem with the fact that it's a decade-long deal?
Hell yeah, I do. I don't like it one bit. I don't think most guys in professional sports deserve a 10-year deal. Now, I want to be very, very clear, Max Kellerman. I have no problem with the money. Get as much money as you can. I have no issue with it whatsoever. If the money is out there to be made, go ahead and make it. I'm not trying to be in anybody's pockets in terms of the dollars. What I have a problem with is I don't believe pretty much anybody is worth a 10-year deal in professional sports. A 5-year deal with a and you got an opt-out, but they don't. They don't get to opt out with Mr. Manny Machado, who picks and chooses when to exude effort, for crying out loud. I'm not sold on it. I'm not saying the brother can't play, because he obviously could ball. We watched him for years in Baltimore. We saw him last year with the Dodgers as well. I understand that he's one of the marquee free agents on the market, but or at least was. But he's no Mike Trout. He's not even any Bryce Harper. And the biggest thing for me, Max, is box office. See, to me, the guys that are worth these, I shouldn't say the dollars, the years, are the guys that are box office, who pay for themselves. You walk through the turnstiles to watch them play. I think that's the case with Bryce Harper, to a lesser degree. I definitely think that's the case with Mike Trout. LeBron, Tiger, people like that. Boxer, they pay for themselves. But when you're just a good player or even a great player, particularly in the sport of baseball, 162 games, chances are you ain't going to win. You go into the Padres. They ain't won a winning record in 7 years. They ain't been in the postseason longer than that since like 2006, if I remember correctly. They ain't been in the World Series since getting swept by the Yankees in 98, if I remember. The bottom line is that you got to build your roster, and I get that. But I'm looking at a guy for 10 years. And I'm like, you know how much trust you got to have in them? And on top of it all, they need to be box office. I don't like it at all. I understand it comes with the territory. We got like 8 or 9 people in history who's gotten 8+ years or $100 million deals. The Derek Jeters, Alex Rodriguez twice, Giancarlo Stanton, and others. I get all of that. But I'm just of the mindset, a 10-year deal is entirely too long. I got no problems with the $300 million. I got no problems with that. But I don't believe there's any player in professional sports, I should say any. Maybe it's like, again, the box office guys, maybe about 4 or 5 of them, because they pay for themselves. Outside of that, there is no way in hell anybody should be given 10 years.
Okay,
that is my problem with the Machado deal.
I agree with you. I'm a guy who's always arguing for labor for the players. I don't like artificial restrictions. I do think there should be a cap on years in baseball. I think the way whatever it is, you got to figure that out. But 10-year deals, I think, are bad. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm glad the Yankees didn't sign him to a 10-year, $300 million deal. Even with the Marlins eating some of that Giancarlo Stanton contract, as a Yankees fan, I wish they weren't in a deal that long for that many dollars. I agree with you there. Where I disagree with you is when you talk about box office. I think any time you take your eyes off the prize, in baseball particularly, because there's so many players, like as opposed to basketball, and you invest extra money in a guy because they're box office. See Pujols on that list? There's a good example. Pujols was box office for the Angels. It was a stupid deal for them to sign at the time, given the position he played, his aging curve, and the amount of money and years especially they gave him. I thought at the time, what are they, crazy? Because they're thinking box office. Take a guy like Tim Duncan. He wasn't really box office, but damn, it'd have been a good idea to give him a 10-year deal if you could have. Or in football, Larry Fitzgerald. There were bigger box office attractions than Larry Fitzgerald, but if you wanted to lock him up long term, all he does is produce every year, keep his head down, doesn't cause a problem, stuff like that. And he helps you win. And Tim Duncan helps you win championships in Tim Duncan's case. And Manny Machado, whether or not he's box office, if I believed that money would help you win over the life of the deal, the whole life of the deal, then I'd have no problem. The issue I have with, like, give Mike Trout 10 years, whatever. That's fine. He's like maybe the best player ever. The issue I have with Machado is I think he's a little bit overrated. He's a great player, but a little overrated. The thing that people can't believe about him is how young he was that good. He's still only 25, 26, and he's doing this, right? Yeah. 26, just turned 26, and he's doing what he's doing. And he's been doing it for years, since he was like 20, 21 years old. That's really impressive. That indicates he may one day be in the Hall of Fame. But people marvel at his glove and they think, yes, he doesn't put up like the greatest offensive numbers, just really, really good offensive numbers. But man, for a guy who plays defense that well, it's really worth it given his age. But he plays defense that well at third base. And it's not that third base is unimportant, but he's a special defender at third base where his bat plays big, but not as big as it plays at shortstop. And while he can play shortstop, he's not a great defensive shortstop. He's good enough with defensive shortstop. So all of a sudden you go, wow, he's an incredible slugger for a shortstop, but he doesn't give you extra defensive value there. Where he gives you the value at third base, he's not as rare a hitter. That's my issue with Machado. You're giving a 10-year deal to a guy that is not Mike Trout. So that's I don't care about box office, Stephen. You know what box office is? If you win, your box office. If you're in contention for championships every year, your box office, whatever your personality is.
Max, I think you're wrong. And the reason why I think you're wrong is because you got to take the sport into consideration. Allen Iverson never won a championship. I'm here to tell you, as the person that covered him every day for the first 10 years of his career, that brother was box office. Everywhere he went, it was a mob scene. He filled arenas. He was box office. And I'm not talking about box office, but you're a scrub. You can't be box office if you can't play. Of course, if you box office, that means I'm taking for granted that one would assume I recognize or you recognize the brother can play. People who can play are box office. People who can't ain't box office. You don't see box office scrubs. It's like an oxymoron. That doesn't work, okay? So we understand that. What I'm telling you is this. In the sport of baseball, there are very, very few people. You can talk about a Mike Trout. There are very few people you walk through the turnstile see. Barry Bonds, when he was playing, you walk through the turnstiles to see that brother over the course of his career. Now, in Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa's case, you did it for 1 year, maybe a couple of years for Mark McGwire. But in the case of Barry Bonds, you did it for a hell of a lot longer than that.
Would you give Bryce Harper 10 years?
Say what?
But he's Bryce Harper's
I would give Bryce Harper.
You would give him 10 years?
Because I think he's box office.